Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's Stuart Finn here. Thanks for dialing in today, and thanks for attending at very short notice for today. I'm just going to share my screen while everybody else gradually arrives, and then we'll run through some setup protocols as well. Okay. Again, welcome to everybody who's just signing in now. And again, thanks for joining us at such quick notice in terms of getting this series up and going quite quickly. We'll just wait another minute and we'll do a bit of an introduction and then run through what we're going to cover this afternoon and what we're going to walk away from this with as a start of a new process. Okay, we might get going. So again, welcome everybody. My name's Stuart Finn from Earth Observation Australia and the University of Queensland. So this is an Earth Observation for Government Network webinar, the first of 3 in a series about vegetation. I just will let everybody know that we are recording today's session, as there are a number of people that are not able to attend and did want to see what we covered as well. Just general protocol in terms of how this is going to work is we'll essentially present some information, some of which you've seen before, and then go and basically seek input from everybody around the table. We'll collect that input using a range of means and use it to help drive the next session, which we're actually doing. So before we get any further, I just want to start things off officially. I'd like to thank and also introduce Larissa Marfan, who's our Earth Observation Government Network Coordinator, who's helped set all of this up quite quickly. So, all right, so just again, if we can keep our microphones on mute, we can have videos on at the moment, unless it looks like the bandwidth is going to start going down. So I do want to start by what we do at most Earth Observation for Australia events, which is just acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia, the lands and the waters on which we meet, elders past and present, and also new and emerging leaders now and in the future. So just in terms of what we'll do first, we are going to spend first 10 minutes just as an introduction and context setting. I do want to remind everyone that this is, I guess, an Earth Observation Australia event. We do have a code of conduct, which is quite simple, which I'm sure everyone knows, which is essentially listening and treating each other with respect. We'll put the link up later on. So just before we introduce everyone, just to go through the aims and the context here. The purpose of this meeting and then another one on Thursday and Friday is to start a process of transitioning from a set of products or services which are being tested in research or operate over smaller areas to nationally accessible data products and services. So these will be provided in some cases by a national agency like Geoscience Australia through Digital Earth Australia, or it could be through other Commonwealth departments. In doing that, that process relies on having state and territory cooperation, but it's meant to be a two-way process where when we share information nationally, we can help states and territories and their activities and help them move forward with assured access to different data sources and the things that are actually needed. It's also about identifying areas where we need to keep research going to help build our capability, in this case for mapping and monitoring vegetation and for dealing with new sensors and algorithms as they come online. Okay. So today's workshop is really having a look at where we got to last year with an earlier workshop, and which was around, okay, this is sort of the state of knowledge of, let's call them vegetation products for use in Australia, which ones are ready to be shifted into more sort of operational national context. So today we'll look at, what are those specific products and services that could be shifted to being implemented nationally. Thursday's workshop or webinar, which some of you will attend as well, is about how that will actually happen within government agencies. And then Friday's webinar will be about, okay, where do we go next in future there. So that's the idea of having the three-part series. And as you can see from the agenda on the screen, it's, we've got 3 sessions over today, Thursday and Friday. It is an experiment in terms of how we do this, so we're quite interested in everyone's feedback on how this is actually going to work, given it's a slightly different way of doing things. So this series of meetings this week is about vegetation. We will have subsequent meetings about land cover, land use, fire, and also water. And I'll come back to why those were actually picked in that context as well. So that's sort of the bigger picture of today. If you have a look at the structure of today, and everyone has access to the document there, we're going to go through a little bit of a background to how we got to this point first, very quickly, to cover off on our workshop last year and what we're prioritising, and make sure if we've missed anything, we need to put that information in. We're going to talk briefly about a survey that we ran several weeks ago, have a short break, and then have 2 really focused sessions on, given what we did last year in our discussion and what's happening now, what are the key vegetation products that need to be made operationally nationally. Doesn't necessarily have to be about how we're going to do it, that's tomorrow, but it's the main part of the discussion is those products. And we'll aim at closing the workshop sort of between 20 and 2:30 Eastern Australian time. So that's the context of today. As I said, we are recording everything that's on the screen, that's in the video windows. If you've got questions, please type them into the chat window. What you type in the chat window is recorded as well. So if you've got suggestions that don't fit into the flow of discussion, that's a good way of actually doing that. What we might do just quite briefly is, can we just do quick introductions around the country in terms of who you are and the agency that you work for, just so we get a good sense of who's there and what you're doing. You can have your video on or off, but I'll essentially go through and unmute people. Once we do that, we'll jump into things as well. So And I'm just going to go down the list I have, which is quite different to everybody else's lists, I think. All right. And also you'll see Larissa's just posted a note on the chat where you can find all the documents for today. So again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Might start with Matt Adams, please.
Matthew Adams, Manager for Imagery in Landgate in Western Australia.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
Larissa.
Good morning or good afternoon. I'm working with Stuart at Earth Observation Australia. If you have any problems throughout the workshop, feel free to send me a chat message and I'll try and sort them out for you.
Cool. Thanks, Larissa. Kristen Williams.
Okay. Hello, Kristen speaking here. I'm the Research Director for the Living Landscapes Research Program in CSIRO Land and Water, and we host several Earth observation teams, and we've got some of our staff represented here today.
Thanks, Kristen. Alexis McIntyre, and I'll just also mention that Alexis will be co-chairing a number of these sessions with us as well.
Hi, Alexis McIntyre here. I'm the Acting Director for Spatial Enablement in the Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment. We've just had a name change, so formerly Environment and Energy, but now providing advice and capability into the department on how we can more effectively use remote sensing and other spatial data sources.
Right. Thanks, Alexis. Mitch Lyons.
Hi there, Mitch. I'm a researcher. I sit across UQ and UNSW, various kind of vegetation mapping, classification things, as well as coral reef stuff. And I'm also kind of partly involved with New South Wales veg mapping and regulatory stuff over the last 6 or 7 years.
Thanks, Mitch. Albert Van Dyke.
Hello, everyone. Albert Van Dyke with the Centre for Water and Landscape Dynamics at the Australian National University. Thanks for organising this meeting in this way to all.
All right, thanks, Albert. And James Cameron.
There we go. Yeah, g'day everyone. I'm the Image Data Coordinator at the Department for Environment and Water in Adelaide. I'm actually standing in for Matt Miles today, who couldn't make it.
Cool. Thanks, James. Cool. Right, Juan Gershman.
Hey, I'm Juan Gershman, CSIRO Land and Water in Canberra. I'm a research scientist working on dynamics, cover rock transpiration, things like that.
Thanks, Juan. Natasha Reid.
Hi everyone, I'm Tash. I'm from Monitoring Evaluation Research Unit, the Forest Fire Regions Group from Delp in Victoria.
Cool. Thanks, Tash. Norman Mueller.
Maybe I'm a moment late there. I'm Norman Mueller from Geoscience Australia. I'm a Director of Product Development for Digital Earth Australia.
Thanks, Norman. Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Mitchell. I'm with the Department of Primary Industries, Parks, Water and Environment in Tasmania, and I'm a geospatial analyst.
Cool. Thanks, Lindsay. All right. Salahuddin.
Hi, Stuart. Nice to see you. I'm from Victoria. I work in the Victorian Forest Monitoring Program with Natasha. We've been emailing you in the last few days about all those remote sensing work. So nice to see you and nice to talking to you.
Thanks, Sal. And Shanti Reddy, I'll also mention that Shanti is going to be co-chairing some of these sessions with us as well.
The National Greenhouse Gas Accounting Team. So this function is now sits as part of the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources, DESER, in Canberra. So we used to be part of the Department of Environment and Energy. Following the MOG in, I think that was the end of January. So since February 1st, we are now part of the industry, Department of Industry in short. So both the climate change and energy functions have now been moved from environment into industry. So that's where I work, and I use a lot of, well, there's a whole bunch of team here. We prepare accounts, and the accounts will be published fairly soon, and we use a whole bunch of remote sensing products and other field data sets as well in the model. So that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Shanti. Sean Levick, please.
I'm Sean Levick, also CSIRO, but based up in Darwin. I'm a remote sensing ecologist, working mostly with LiDAR, radar in the carbon and biodiversity space. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Wendy Thompson.
Hi, Stuart. I'm Wendy Thompson with EPA in Western Australia. I'm leading a strategy on how we address cumulative impacts from the state perspective, and also working on a state strategy around native vegetation. So I'm very much interested in rolling out products that can be used from a policy government perspective.
Thanks, Wendy. Jeremy Black.
Hi there, Jeremy Black. I'm the Director of Remote Sensing and Landscape Science in the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment in New South Wales. My part of the organisation looks after vegetation type mapping, vegetation regulation and clearing monitoring.
Thanks, Jeremy. And have I missed any? Oh, there's someone logged on as MW51, and I apologise, I don't have the name in front of me.
Hi, Stuart. It's Matt White speaking. I'm not sure
why. Oh, Matt. Hi. Sorry.
Name comes up as my username. So I'm Matt White from Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning in Victoria. I work at the Arthur Ryland Institute, and I've been mapping and modelling stuff for a while.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks everyone for getting through that. Have I missed anyone? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's keep going. So again, if there are questions or points of clarification, please type them into the chat window and we'll try and address them. Just looking at the agenda in terms of the background to where we've gotten to today, the concept of the Earth Observation for Government Network came from a number of places around the country, but was primarily driven 2 years ago through Alan Metlenko and Norman Mueller, Geoscience Australia, and also Alexis McIntyre when Alexis was there. And we said, okay, well, how do we put together some sort of coordination mechanism that would let states and territories and Commonwealth agencies work together to make sure we had the right sort of data and information being delivered at a national level, which enabled the best possible approaches to be used where possible in each area, and also to define areas that could direct research more sensibly in future to application areas which will deliver useful applications for states and territories and Commonwealth agencies. So it was initially the Surface Cover Information Network and then transformed to Earth Observation for Government. And we've been able to operate it through Earth Observation Australia at University of Queensland since the end of 2017. And we got to a slow start due to a range of things. But fortunately in 2019, we ran our first workshop, major workshop, in August that year. That workshop was modelled on an earlier activity that Albert Van Dyke had run at ANU, looking at environmental accounts and bringing Commonwealth agencies and researchers together, and tried to build on that initial idea and make it a little bit bigger. So I'm really happy we've got Albert continuing to cooperate with us on this. The workshop in August in Canberra we got everyone to do some preparation work and essentially came together and talked about, well, what did we consider were research level products, what were operational, and identified that operational meant different things to different people in state and territory agencies and Commonwealth agencies. And then we looked at all of the agencies and what current needs were and what they were in future, and tried to summarise that in a database and a report. So the database, which is there, which has a typo fixed. So can everyone see? I've changed the screen in the browser. Can everyone now see a spreadsheet?
Yep, can see that, Stuart.
Okay, so this is the simple version of the database. You've essentially got a series of products in the left-hand column, where it's coming from, the category, and then the colour coding is the research to operational status. And you can see we haven't completed that as much as we could. Green, it's operational. Red, it's pre-research. So that was one component of the output. The larger component was this report. And that's where we pulled together the pre-workshop material, what we did during the day, and then feedback afterwards. And essentially, it enabled us to identify a number of key types of informations or products that we needed at a national level, and how we might continue the process of having state and territory and Commonwealth agencies meet together. And so this workshop, in a sense, is the first direct follow-on from that to help us continue to build those partnerships and move forward at the moment. So this is just about how we're going to run it moving forward. And the executive summary for this particular document, if we just go through it quickly, it says what we're trying to do: get a shared understanding of EO needs at all levels of government, increase the use of EO products and services, and then transition from research to operational, with the bottom line of improving how we sort of measure, map, monitor and manage the environment for a range of applications. So if you have a look at the outcomes at the bottom there, the product priorities that we did come up with looking at that document: the land cover and land use, vegetation, including biomass, water and topography, and then there was a secondary list. So we've started going through these priorities, with the aim of figuring out how do we go from research to operational and build on what we did last year. So that's, I guess, where we're starting from at the moment. A couple of other pieces of context. Once the AGN was started, the Australian Space Agency was also set up in 2018, and that has 8 civil space priorities. Earth observation is one of those civil space priorities. The reason I'm mentioning this is that agencies have been put in place to help build Australia's capability in those areas, particularly industry and particularly in supporting government activities. There are 2 activities that the agency is involved with at the moment that will affect what we do in terms of how it prioritises national level work and also potential research and research to operational funding from other entities. So there is a roadmap for Earth observation, which, as to the best of my knowledge and other people might know, is likely to come out in the middle of this year. And that is meant to focus, how the Commonwealth can help government and industry move Earth observation forward. The more imminent activity, which I know a number of you are involved with, is the Bushfire Earth Observation Task Force preliminary report on how Earth observation can be used pre-fire, during fires, and post fires. So that potentially will affect what we're doing. The last point I'll mention is the SmartSat Cooperative Research Centre, which started formally last year. It's a 7-year project, which is about, again, building Australia's space capabilities. I've mentioned it because there are two aspects of that which are going to lead to national mission proposals around water-based applications and fire-based applications. So, and the aim of that, the CRC, is to work with government and industry to partner on doing this. So that will also affect what we do down the track. So I might just pause there for a second just to see if there are any questions about any of that context setting, which we've covered there so far, or if there are any other key drivers that we've missed out at the moment. And if there's not, we will just keep going, but people can type ideas as we go. So to provide some context to this workshop and the other ones which are coming up, we did instigate a small survey several weeks ago, and which had a series of questions, and you can see some of the summary responses here. It was looking at vegetation and land cover, and we were asking people, basically it was a reality check on the workshop that was done in August last year to see if there are any changes in priority variables, the type of Earth observation data that was being used, how it was being validated on the ground, and what people considered were the strong and weak points. And I'd encourage everyone to have a look through this. At some point, it generally lines up with what we covered at the workshop in August under vegetation, particularly in terms of the amount of sort of horizontal vegetation cover if you want, the amount of vertical vegetation, type of vegetation, and then changes in vegetation cover, specifically where you've got clearing or regrowth, and biomass as a measurement also comes into there. So the results there, which I know some of you contributed, all reflect, this is where we are, and we're all roughly on the same page in terms of what's required. So just trying to make sure we also stick to time. I did want to, before we actually have a break, start the discussion and jump ahead a little bit in terms of moving to operational national products. So this is point 5 in the agenda. And there's two things there. I just wanted to recap on operational, because that had a number of key considerations, and then discuss, what do we talk about when we're going from products that are ready to go to an operational level, so we can identify them, and then also just introduce the mechanisms that we'll use to collect information as well. So I might get, I'll work with Larissa to do that before the break. But what I might ask is if Alexis and Shanti could say a few words each about, I guess, what you see the priorities are for driving, from state and territory levels up to national levels, what you would want to get out of this week. And maybe go with Alexis first, then Shanti.
Okay.
Thanks, Stuart. I haven't really thought about this in advance, so this will be a bit of a fairly rough version of what I think the priorities are. But I think from my experience over the last little while, for me, the key priorities are identifying what we have in common, what is going to be useful, that's going to not only meet our needs at the national scale, but also be of value to all of the other jurisdictions that are operating across Australia. And work out how we can more effectively coordinate around these particular things that we have in common. Something that we come across quite often is the difficulty of actually putting in place agreements around data sharing and being able to, I guess, operate with different scales of data sets. And that's kind of not limited to spatial scale. That's also talking about temporal scale, or also just the quality of the data. So I think that that's something that we need to think about this week, is what it means to have products at the national scale versus for smaller areas that might be to meet a particular purpose within a particular jurisdiction. So it's not really talking about specifically vegetation products. Is that the sort of thing that you wanted me to talk about too, Stuart?
No, I mean, yes and no. If you've gone down one of the tracks, I hope you would, which is that going from smaller areas to large areas and what the practicalities are, that's going to be one of the things we definitely have to consider and everyone needs to keep in mind. And I think that the discussion about which products can come up as we move on from this, that it's, I was interested, and I think the group's interested in, well, what's that transition to operation look like, and what are some of the blocks which you've just mentioned. So that's
good. Happy to talk about some of the specifics as well, but I think that we're keeping that for the session after the break.
Yep, that's right. Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis. I'll just jump over to Shanti for some similar comments to begin with. Well, we might have to unmute Shanti. Yeah. I can't unmute you, so for some reason. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Look, I'll be brief. I think in terms of vegetation, let's focus on vegetation, for example, to start with. The first point I'd like to make is that obviously there are quite a few products already, and this is something many agencies, both at state and territories level as well as federal level, have been producing some products and have been using this for many, many years. So this is a good example of operational use of Earth observation data. I think going forward, we need to see what we can value add, especially there are a lot more new sensors now. One of the things from my perspective is that there's a gap. For example, there is a lot of LiDAR data. There's a lot of spaceborne as well as airborne LiDAR data that are obviously site-specific, but we need to use them to inform some of these other data sets to actually make more reliable operational products. To give you an example, we've been mapping the National Carbon Accounting System, as some of you would know, mapping forest and non-forest cover and sparse more recently, last 10 years sparse. So these three class products since, from 1972 to present a consistent national product. However, that the calibration for those products and the training was done a while ago, and we've done some what we call improvisation or recalibration time to time. But I think there is now a point where we have a lot more data. We should go back and recalibrate and produce a better quality product, both into future as well as into in the past as well, historical products. Newer sensor data, for example, Sentinel, is something we should is of interest to many people. I know Queensland have already working, and I know other people are also looking at it, and we are also looking at is another area where we could collaborate and think about this national operational context and say, what is that we can do? And noting that none of these products, we're not proposing that there's one product that everybody should use, but I think what we are saying is having these sort of inputs and a sharing of data both at a ground level as well as airborne to calibrate our modeling and machine learning algorithms, and then produce products that many people can use for different purposes. And there could be more than one group doing this, which is better. That's our view. So there's definitely, Stuart, vegetation is of interest and has been historically used a lot. I guess the question is now, what are the gaps and what can we do now in the next 3 years? In my view, the gap is actually, as I said, integrating with the higher resolution data and actually making more, for example, the tree height, for example, is something we can do better now with the ISAT and also with the JEDI and other missions coming on board. And that's an opportunity we could work together as a community and make those products better and enhance, complementing the optical sensors have this historical coverage. So these newer missions can actually complement that. So that's, I think, is an opportunity for us going forward. In terms of biomass, I'm not sure how many people really need biomass for different purposes. Again, we have an approach, we have a model-based approach informed by ground measurements, and we believe that's probably the best way. But other people can have, we know, have different approaches. So again, that's an area where we continuously improve our procedures. So we've done a massive recently update to our biomass equations in FullCam using the Turn biomass library. It's a good example of another, again, led by Queensland colleagues, a fantastic example of what, how useful it is when you pull these two data sets together. So it's been incredibly valuable. That the Turn biomass library is a great example. So I think we can use more in that space along those lines. And there's more data in the, for example, we should have a LiDAR library of biomass products. We could then use to inform calibrating other satellite products, and different people will have different needs and different models to calibrate to, so which is fine. Maybe I'll pause there and see if that's what you're expecting, Stuart. If I can quickly mention about the fire, I think there is also a big, more than vegetation to me, if you ask me in terms of prioritization, more than land use and vegetation, because those two, land use and vegetation, we have quite a few products and we have quite a depth of experience among states and federal departments. So there's quite a few products and we have, mature state of application, whereas fire, I think we're really not there. There's a lot of gaps, and recent events in the country also pointed out to the gaps, and there's need for that, particularly around the historical occurrence, but also fuel loads and the, in terms of that. So maybe to me, that's really more immediate need from our perspective, where we sit than vegetation and land cover. So maybe I'll hand it over back to you, Stuart, and for others to comment on that.
Cool. Thanks very much, Shanti. Just before we move on a bit, and I actually think this is going to be a good point, just have a brief break to stretch our legs, or a bio break, or whatever people want to do. Both of what Shanti and Alexis covered just highlighted this sort of flow chart, which you can see, which...
Stuart, would you mind zooming in a document a bit?
Yeah, I'm going to, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and maybe get rid of the index on the left side, that one, the contents table, that'll give you a bit more real estate. And zoom a couple more, I think it'll be readable then. Thank you.
Thanks. That's the sort of feedback we need. Okay, so this is what we showed last year. The intention is to ideally set up a structure so that we can have a good idea of what's going on at each level, from research through to operational at state and national levels, One of the things that came up in what Chanty and Alexa said was the importance of field data as well, but also research infrastructure as well. And research infrastructure plays a critical role in enabling us to pull together different data sets across different jurisdictions and build national products. The research infrastructure is not necessarily where we want operational activities or products and services for people to use 24/7, 365 days a year. And I know there's different versions of that, but operational activities ideally shouldn't be on research infrastructure. That's a whole other thing. But so the idea of these workshops in the case of today and Thursday, Friday is for vegetation, is let's look across this sequence. The workshop last year established a process where we could try to identify at least each year where we think products or algorithms or projects were along this continuum. Ideally, what we want to talk about in the next session this afternoon is what are some of those key, I guess, I'm going to use products, services, algorithms that have been proven to work over the majority of the country or that work over the majority of the country and that are run research-wise or at a state and territory level and could be moved operationally at a national level where they are provided continually as a service. One example I will give is that within research infrastructure, whether it's marine or terrestrial, you often have applications that hit a ceiling of, well, it works and people are using it and they want to use it more, but there's not recurrent funding for it because the research infrastructure was to do research. So if those products are being used operationally by agencies, well, it should ideally move out. So that's just one example. There are others. What we might do now is if we just have a break until, let's say, 10 to the hour for people who are on the East Coast and West Coast, and slightly different if you're in the middle of the country. So if we have a break and essentially be back at 1:50, and what we'll be doing is then talking about, okay, let's submit ideas and thoughts on how to move forward to the next stage. So yeah, if you do have questions during the break, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we'll pause the recording and be back in 5 minutes. So I'll see everyone then. Thanks, Larissa. Cool. All right. Okay. Just a couple of thoughts, questions have come in. I'm just going to go through what Mitch has just asked. Question of context. Is the end game a succession plan for state-based products or more general? I think without having read the rest of your question, Mitch, I think it is more general, and it is about what does that whole set of activities look like from sort of the research end where we're still figuring out sensors and algorithms. The states and territories have operational products themselves, and then the Commonwealth does as well. So just to be clear, it's definitely not about how do we stick together state and territory stuff to move it to the next level, because there's a range of different sources of information. As an example, there's a discussion at the moment around the National Fractional Cover product, which is currently sitting in research infrastructure and has sat there for a decent amount of time. There is a version of it online nationally. That's the sort of thing that we need to move from a research point of view into an operational activity. So yeah, and it is about relieving the burden of, it's not an either or one, so it's not just relieving the burden and duplicating effort, but it is, trying to build approaches that use everybody's strengths and capabilities, particularly field data. And that the processing levels we're talking about here are at the final sort of product stage. So we're not talking about, at surface reflectance, those sorts of things. We're talking about, in this case, things like fractional cover. And I think we will get into a discussion of what operational actually is as well. So hopefully, Mitch, that answers some of the questions there. But thanks for asking that, because it establishes the context of what we're doing now. So just for taking everyone's attention back to the agenda. We can focus on 5 and 6 now. We did some of the introduction to 5 before, and then 6 is really about where do we go for the next 6 months. One of the things we did ask in August was what people thought was meant by operational for their activities and their data sets, and it partly gets to what Mitch just mentioned there with analysis ready data. The answer is it's different for different people, and it's important that we recognise those differences. What we would like to try now, and there's 2 ways we can do this, is to actually get people's thoughts about, what are key products that you know about that are either in research infrastructure or that we've been trying to build national capabilities for, that could and should be brought forward into national level products. The example I gave before, which I will put into the mix, is going to be fractional cover there, but there are other ones as well. So there's 4 different dot point definitions there, if you have a look at what I've highlighted on the screen. So we're after products that people think are operational at a national scale, but sitting in research infrastructure. So the research infrastructure goes down or is not up to date, you lose those. Could be operational at state and territory level, but ideally would work at a national level. And it's also good to know, what do we have that's research proven at a national scale, that is, it's been validated under a range of different operating conditions, but it's not being implemented operationally, and then others. So what we did last year when we looked at this is we generated basically a list of products, which you can see on the screen here. The ones with green in the 3rd column are broadly classed as vegetation products. Some of those are in research infrastructure, particularly the ones up there, and some of those are national products, some of those aren't. And there's a large number of research products there that could be made potentially operational. That's everything from condition and phenology measures, fractional cover, pasture dynamics, there's mangrove. Actually, the mangroves, Norman, correct me if I'm wrong, the mangroves has transitioned to a DEA.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, so we need to have that. And that
we have the fractional cover from Landsat as well.
Yep. Okay. So those are, actually just on that, the mangroves product is one that actually did go through our first trial workshop in 2018, where we brought together all the groups and then pushed it forward. Now there is a version of fractional cover in there, but there's a possibility to improve that with new data as well. So there's a range of products in there from different sensors. that are all vegetation. So what we would like you to do is in the participant folder, if you have access to that G drive at the moment, and we're aware some people don't, there is a link to, it says EOGN Vegetation Workshop Participant Input Form. If you click on that link, it will open up a, excuse me, a page like this. And what we would like you to do is if you could just put in your name and your organisation, and there's one question there to focus on. And that question which we would like you to focus on is priority products for transition. I'll actually change that to the priority vegetation products for transition. So these could be from research proven, research infrastructure to operational, or state and territory products to operational as well. So if you can go to that and have a think about it, and we're going to give you a couple of minutes to actually do this, and then when you're done.
Stuart,
also,
I want to throw a question here. How specific you want us to be? I'll give you an example. You've mentioned fractional cover, which is operational, but depending on the user you're dealing with, the user may think it's not yet being operational.
Yeah.
More specifically, Digital Earth Australia checks every single Landsat and probably already Sentinel-2 image and produces fractional cover. But many users actually need a seasonal or monthly composite that gets rid of clouds, and others may need derived statistics from there, and they are not able to calculate by themselves. So the generic umbrella of fractional cover may mean different things for different people. Same about, say, open WAFs, same thing, and the same is probably true for many others.
Yeah, thanks, Juan. I mean, that's an excellent point. And what we are looking for is we're trying to draw on the organisation you're representing and your knowledge and experience. So just drawing on your example one, there's some of those fractional cover products, are operational. They're delivered through VEA. They're backed up with the documentation and everything behind it. There's a Landsat version, there's a Modus version elsewhere, but the example you gave, like the seasonal fractional cover, is a good example. Some people specifically want the bare ground component of it, so it's basically as specific as you can be. Hopefully that clarifies it.
All right. Yep.
Cool. All right. I know some people also have to go at this time as well, and what we will do is basically send around the questionnaire later on, so that you can actually have an input afterwards. And I'm also just realising that some of the people some of you may have the link to the actual questionnaire and are able to change the question instead of the actual.
Do you want to just modify that? I'm not sure if we're going to be able to submit our.
Yeah, let me, thanks, Peter. Just give me 2 seconds and we'll get that link around to everyone. Here it comes. All right, if you use that form or that link, it'll take you to the actual questions. So you'll be able to type your answer into that. So it means you'll have a view that looks like this and won't be able to see the actual component there. So it's just after 2 at the moment. So I think if we could I think spend 10 minutes on this for people to think about it, ask questions in the chat window. So the point that Juan just made, I'll get to Kristen's question in a second, is a really good one. I know this feels a little bit like reinventing what we did in August, but trying to get a balance between getting back into what we were doing and setting context and moving forward as effectively as possible as well. So if you can just spend the next 10 minutes on the question down here, which is priority vegetation products for transition. And if you got questions, just type them into the chat window. Right. And
Stuart, I think your first question doesn't have an actual question. It's probably your name. Is that right?
Yeah, it only allows a number too.
Oh.
But I'll fix it, okay? Sorry guys, just give me 1 second and I'll go back and fix that one. Hopefully now that everyone's using the link which was just sent around, so that link that I've just sent you in the Zoom chat window gets you into the actual the response form. The link you had before was the actual entire survey that you got to change around. So just
Stuart, I don't have the chat window and I don't seem to be able to find it.
okay. No worries, just give me 2 seconds. All right, there'll be a name field in there now as the first one, and it'll take a short answer to it. If you can't, just let me know. Mitch, let me know if it doesn't work.
Still saying a number only.
A number?
Unless I refresh.
Yeah,
maybe.
I just reloaded it. It should be sweet now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I did that and it's still the same.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, number one.
Someone was after the chat window. Were you able to find it?
It's Alexis here. No, I can't find it.
So down the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see 3 little dots and it says more.
No.
No. You should have share screens, reaction, and then more with 3 little dots.
No, so I can share screen, but I can't do anything else.
I will email you a link.
Alexis, are you using the browser-based version of Zoom or the app version of Zoom?
The app version.
Oh, that's curious. Normally the browser version can do this sometimes where it goes a bit nuts.
Yeah. No, like I've used the chat window in Zoom before, so I'm not really sure what's happening there.
I'll just send you a link to that doc by email.
You're not the only one, Alexis. I can't see any chat option either.
Cool. Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, the questionnaire link's sorted and it's gone around to everyone. Yeah, so if we spend roughly 10 minutes doing that, and if you've got questions. Wendy, that summary table which you're asking about is in the participants folder. It's called the Australian EO Capability Database. Okay. It should be the first item in the folder. Just going back to Kristen's question, do we include model data fusion products that integrate a wide range of remote sensing products across sensors like NCAS? Yeah, I mean the HCAS, the Habitat Condition Assessment System, is an integration. This sort of gets into a slightly different area, Kristen, because it's Yeah. I don't know if I'm being too prescriptive in saying, okay, habitat condition is a lot of other environmental elements other than just the vegetation that's there. So, right, that's, I think.
That's true. It's trying to emulate what vegetation is there, but thinking through what you're trying to do, the our remote sensing products that we input into it to characterise the vegetation would probably be relevant to the workshop.
Okay.
So I could go down that line.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the sort of thing, if you're able to put that in, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for coming back to the meeting. This is going to be a little bit clunky to start with, so I appreciate everybody's patience on this, and we'll gradually sort things out as we go along. And if, like, the questions that Juan asked and that Kristen asked and that Mitch asked as well are all really good context setting questions. So.
Okay.
Probably just go for another couple of minutes on that before writing input. Cool. All right, thanks everybody. I might just get you to press the submit button on your form, just get those in. And what we'll do is, Larissa, I'm just going to do something for about 2 minutes to check input. If you could just tidy up that table so we can see just the rows and columns easily. Are you able to do that?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Okay. Quick question to everybody first, and we can write responses in the chat window. The Google Forms is one way of collecting that information. One of the other things that we want to do in these workshops is just get people's input as we go through, like as if you're in a room and you're putting up sort of post-it notes on the wall. So I'm just going to share my screen again. So this is essentially a check-in for the next couple of days for the remaining 2 workshops. I don't know if any of you have used Mural. It's basically an online package that lets you put post-it notes. This is a blank page at the moment that we would use for putting post-it notes on it. I'll just show you. This is a page that we had in our research group when we were looking at strategies for working at home. You know, so the top corner there was what worked, what does not work, you know, new ideas, unanswered questions. And so we had 30 people online who were able to basically come in. You can put a post-it note on there, color-coded, and move things around and keep track of it. So what we're considering is essentially a similar thing like this for the next couple of days, so that when we go through looking at different products and operational requirements, we can capture people's information. So I don't want to spend too long on this, but if anyone's had good or bad experiences or has other suggestions on how to do sort of virtual post-it notes, we'd appreciate it, because it was something we used a lot in the last workshop, and we'll use it again. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that, just briefly, other than yes, no, that looks really bad, or here's something else you might want to use as well. So
I think it's a great idea, Stuart.
Yep, thanks, Mark. Any other thoughts? Cool. All right. There are some challenges with multiple people using it, but we'll get around it. So it's called Mural. If you want to try it, it works really well, particularly when we're trying to figure things out like this, like getting everyone's ideas up and then grouping them as well. So, cool. All right. Just going to go back to where we are now. I just wanted to recap briefly on where we got to in August last year, and then what we've just done, and then look at how to move forward into the next 2 webinars, which is how do we potentially move forward to some operational activities, not reinventing the wheel, and basically building on what people have done already. I've just jumped across now. I'm sorry to keep changing windows. This is in the report which we were looking at before, which was the outcomes from the workshop last year. This is Appendix 6, where we were looking at pre-operational products. What we did last year when we met, and a number of you were there, is we looked at, rather than the different types of products, it was whether you were sort of in research or industry or NGO, state agencies and Commonwealth agencies. And then we asked people to go through and identify what were pre-operational products that they wanted to bring in. So, and this is where the different definitions of operational come in, which everyone's brought up before. So the Commonwealth level, it was relatively focused. At a state level, it's more diverse, and it's also application and environment specific. And then at a research level, it expands out even more. So that was a good start. What we're trying to do now is focus in on how do we potentially move forward with a subset of these activities that we could actually push forward. So, thanks, Larissa. So this is essentially the summary of what everyone's just put in so far. I'll just go to 125. Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong one. Yeah. Right, yeah. So this is what we ask people to fill out. It looks like some of you have gone through and have filled out a couple of relevant questions, which is really helpful in terms of updating. This column here was sort of the priority interest in terms of products in transition there. So, I mean, Jeremy's got a state focus. Alexis has identified ones there for vegetation, which are quite specific. Juan's also identified the more detailed levels of the fractional cover, plus additional vegetation-related information of evapotranspiration. So it's not necessarily what vegetation's there, but process measurement. Structural classification from Norman, which comes back to the spec classification. Woody cover fraction. Matt Adams, nationally agreed fractional cover project and multiple scales. Actually, Matt, could I just ask you to, if you're still on there, can I ask you to just clarify what you mean by multiple scales there?
Oh, it's there's interest in both 250 meter MODIS fractional cover at monthly and seasonal, as well as Landsat, as well as Sentinel at 10 meters, utilizing a fusion there. So you're talking about different scale sets for different use case scenarios.
Yeah, cool. Right. Now, I think that's a really good point, and this digs into what I think Juan mentioned before as well, and that is what we're trying to get to is like, okay, you know, there is fractional cover, but there are these range of products from it, and they are used by different national, state, and territory agencies. The long acronym, which Matt has in there, and Matt, you can tell me if I get it wrong, it was the Australian Government Earth Observation from Space Working Group. I think I got that right. So that was state and territory agencies in the Commonwealth, essentially trying to agree on how to move forward. Ideally, that's what we would be trying to do in EOGN here. So this is definitely moving down the right track there. Presence and absence, veg cover, monitoring, moving to condition and speciation across the state. Okay. Mitch has got fractional cover, height-related ones. Albert, woody cover fraction, woody veg height, and woody biomass. Kristen's got all structure, function, composition. Okay. I know everybody's coming at this from different angles, but that's incredibly helpful to see that list because it narrows down very quickly what we identified last year. We're not going to be able to cover everybody's needs, but by having the major agencies in here, it's a start. We will try and make this process open so people can submit information as well. So thanks for going through and doing that. That's going to be a good basis for tomorrow. All right. I just wanted to jump forward to where we would likely go with all of this and leave time for a few questions. So the aim tomorrow is myself and Larissa will tidy up the output from today and take that in tomorrow's, Thursday's webinar. And it'll be looking at, okay, how, you know, what's actually required in terms of those products and services nationally, you know, at what level are they being delivered at and what work's required to push them forward to making that actually happen. And we'll also, part of that process is, well, which groups do we need to engage in this process? And and make it happen, so that we're trying to get state and Commonwealth activities to complement one another, not essentially have one subsidising the other, and just getting people working together and talking to do these things more effectively, and being able to access resources that will let us produce these things. And once we go through that on Thursday, that will also push out to, well, there's changes in data sets coming in and products, particularly around structure and height metrics. Everybody's probably already seen a lot of the preliminary NASA JEDI products which are coming out across the country. As they gradually gap fill, we'll have more sort of height information. There's other data sets that can potentially use that as well, particularly with imaging radar data sets as well. So Friday we'll push into, well, what are the research directions we need to specify to the community nationally to say, here's what we're going to do. And then just the last point I want to finish off on before questions is that, it is also about trying to work out how we get different groups to commit to, still doing their work and helping to move everyone else and themselves forward. So we are going to get people to commit to doing things. And then lastly, we were planning to have a follow-up integrative workshop on all of this in September this year at the first Advancing Earth Observation Forum in Brisbane, which, a new National Australian meeting, but we've just taken the decision to postpone that to next year in August. But what we're discussing here and how it moves forward, that's also going to be a national forum for later on as well. So I know some of you have been very closely involved in that, and others, hopefully that'll help you get involved. So I did want to stop there and just pause and go to questions. People want to type questions in or mention anything as well. Just while people are thinking, I did see Matt's point about supporting a wide range of maturity is going to be a bit of a challenge because operational is different to everyone. And I do think we can try and help this group move forward to having at least a consensus on what could be done at the national level as well. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions before we try and wrap up for today? Larissa, while people are thinking, is there anything you wanted to say?
Just that I will email the outputs from today to everyone.
Yeah. Right. And also, I guess, Alexis. Sorry, Larissa, you have yeah.
I was just going to say thank you for continuing to drive this forward.
No, it's going forward because everyone's interested and wants it to work. I acknowledge today was a bit bumpy, and again, thanks for doing this at last minute. But we'll get it to the point where it's working, and we can make sure we've got that longer term process going from research to enabling things to work and focusing our communities through to operating as required at state, territory and national levels. So thanks, Alexis. All right. I think, Norman, any other points from a Geoscience Australia point of view?
The only points from our point of view are that we try to operationalize things so that they are relatively nationally consistent, but also temporally consistent. It's more important to us to have something that we have known errors around than having the most accurate product, but we still want something that's really good, so that makes it hard.
Right. Thanks, Norman. And then
Stuart. There's a lot of echo.
to try again, Shanti?
Is that better now? Yeah. No, it's still. I will type.
Cool. So thanks, Shanti. Sorry about the challenge there. Just taking note of the comments that people are putting in there, and we'll include them in the write-up. I do want to just bring up a point that several people made it, that the Australian Government Earth Observation from Space Working Group did have a mandate to do things nationally. You know, EOGN is a program of work. It's not an entity, but it would be good if we can agree on how to do things nationally. So, cool. All right. So just while Shanti's typing there, again, thank you everybody for your time today and your patience in getting this up and going. It is going to progress and be run hopefully more smoothly in the future. I would hope with the Space Agency's roadmap for Earth observation, and also what we see come out of the Bushfire Earth Observation Task Force report, that it will help drive what we're doing as well. I think Shanti's question to actually, Norman, can we, because some of us have to jump off, could you take that question on notice from Shanti, and it might have to be an email conversation?
Sure, I can do that. But I mean, we certainly want to have a national fire extent severity timing type product. We are working on that. At the same time, I know that there's a lot of products coming out of the States, and there's one coming out of Department of Ag, Water and Environment. So I also don't want to end up tripping over everybody.
Yep. And there will be a separate workshop on that. So that's a good point. Thanks, Norman. Quick question from Juan. The next two workshops. So on Thursday, it will be about how do we actually start to make these transitions, and who's going to do it, from operational to research. And then Friday is more, what are the high-end research needs we need to push. If you haven't received an invitation to those meetings, can you please email Larissa and myself after this, and we'll make sure you get one as well, because having that continuity of engagement through this process would help tremendously as well. So, all right. Okay.
Sorry, Stuart, did you just say that you're planning a separate meeting workshop on fire-related stuff?
Yes.
Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
But it's not scheduled yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, that's right.
So the sequence at the moment, Mitch, will be there's the vegetation one we're doing now, then land cover, land use, and then after that there's going to be a combination of, different order of fire, water, and probably some other ones as well. And the fires will have pre-fire, during fire, and then post-fire as well. So,
okay, cool.
All right. Cool. All right. Thanks again, everyone. That was really helpful, and I look forward, hopefully, to seeing and talking with you all on Thursday and Friday. And if you've got any follow-up comments, please let Larissa and I know. And there's actually a feedback form, as we always do for EOA activities, which is in the participants folder. So please, if you've got 2 minutes, just spend some time on that. So we'll make sure that's the right link too. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time. And look forward to
See you later.
Thanks, Stuart.